Chief Press Secretary to the Governor's Wife and also a representative of Vika Hope Foundation. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, dear listeners.
You're welcome. Okay, let's just get straight to it. What is sickle cell anemia, Dr. Chikeze?
Alright, sickle cell anemia is an inheritable blood disorder. It's genetic in its origin, considering that the problem is that some genetic abnormalities take place, what we describe as a point mutation in the beta globin gene. Well, to break that down, blood as we know it has components, the white, the red cells, and then the platelets. The red cells are known to carry oxygen. The component of the red cells that carry oxygen are the hemoglobin. Now the hemoglobin has its genetic makeup. There are mutations that occur in that gene that cause the normal red blood cell which ordinarily should be biconcave in its shape, to lose that shape under certain conditions of stress like dehydration, hypoxia, that's reduced oxygen tension in the blood, and then they develop a sickled shape. That's putting it in very simple terms. That's what it is. The development of that sickled shape, okay, will lead to a whole lot of other conditions that will manifest clinically. Okay. It has bone pains, rapid destruction of blood cells, reduction in the immunity of the patient, which are the basic issues they present with.
All right. Okay. So what medical problems are caused by sickle cell disorder?
Okay, when you talk about medical problems, we talk about sickle cell crisis, and then we talk about complications of sickle cell. Now, sickle cell crisis, commonly people know the bone pain.
Okay.
That's what people are accustomed to, what we call the vaso-occlusive crisis. Okay, those sickle shapes, sickle-shaped red cells, okay, their movement within blood vessels that are small in caliber tend to block the blood vessels. Those red blood cells that are sickled don't do this alone. They do this in collaboration with the white cells, the platelets. A lot of addition molecules are released, the endothelium is activated, and so the blood vessel is blocked. That is what happens at the end of the day.
Okay.
And so they develop pain. Now, that is what happens on one hand, but then the rapid destruction of blood cells, okay, because these are known to be abnormally shaped, the body identifies them as not being the normal blood cells, so they quickly mop them up, they quickly destroy them from the system, so they have a reduced lifespan of the red blood cells, so they are always anemic.
Okay.
They have those pains. Now, so they have a hyperhemolytic crisis, rapid breakdown of red cells, then the vaso-occlusive crisis, the pains they know about. But then there are other complications of sickle cell disease, and sometimes they present with these complications are not the usual bone pain or hyperhemolysis.
Okay.
So sometimes they come with features of infection because the immunity is depressed. Sometimes they come with complications like nephropathy, because what goes on in that causes the pain can go on in any organ in the body, the kidneys, the lungs, anywhere. So it can destroy those organs over time. Okay, so they can have features of failure, organ failure, particularly kidney failure. Okay, so they can have, there's this sickle lung syndrome, so they can have issues with the lungs too. They can have priapism. They sometimes have sustained erection, very painful, and other complications like stroke. So there, in fact, we know sickle cell to affect any organ in the body, including the eyes. It can actually cause blindness, depending on which part of the body is occluded at any point, and then the how long that occlusion lasts to cause sufficient deprivation of supply of nutrients to that organ. It can die.
Okay. Now you have explained to us all of the things that someone who has the sickle cell disease goes through. Okay, how can one find out that they have sickle cell disease? How do people get the sickle cell disease?
Okay, like we said earlier, it's genetic, so it's inherited also. Okay. A man marries a wife and then they give birth to a child. If a man is known to be HbAs, that's the hemoglobin phenotype. That is actually what it's called. Generally, we talk about genotype. But the AS, the SS, and all of that, that is the phenotype. So the hemoglobin phenotype is AS in a man and then is AS in a woman. If they start having children, for each pregnancy, there is a 1 in 4 chances that you will have a child who is SS, because the man, the hemoglobin gene, okay, the man makes contributions, the woman makes contributions in the child. So if there is an S and then there is an S in the man and S in the woman, they can come together in the child to make the child SS. But then don't forget that sickle cell is a disease. It's actually a spectrum, a little different from sickle cell anemia.
Okay.
Because when we talk about sickle cell anemia, we're talking about people who are homogeneous SS patients. It means they are SS.
Okay.
But there are people who could be SC, because there are other abnormal forms of hemoglobin, not just S. So there is the C, there is the E, there is the D Punjab, there is ORAB. There are different. In fact, sometimes
they're all abnormal.
They're all abnormal.
Okay.
Okay. There are the thalassemic forms. So if you have an S, okay, from one parent, and then say an O Arab from another parent, that's still sickle cell disease. Different from sickle cell anemia because it is not SS, but they manifest almost the same. They have almost the same manifestations.
Okay. All right, we're getting an education right here in the studios of Flow 94.9 FM. It's the 19th day in the month of June, and today is a commemoration of the sickle cell disease day, creating awareness. And right now in the studios of Flow 94.9 FM, there's a free testing going on for you to know your genotype. So you can come down here and get yourself tested in case you do not know your genotype. Get your girlfriend, get your boyfriend, your relatives, come down to 7B Factory, DCMR Faruku, and get tested so that you can know your genotype. But then, at what age do they discover that somebody or a child or a person has got the sickle cell disease? I've seen a situation where a parent never knew that their child had the sickle cell disease until she was in secondary school. Yeah, so at what age can they find out that a child has this? Does it show or?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. What you have said is true. In fact, I saw a patient recently. He only found out when he was 10 years. Okay, so those things keep happening. Truth is that as from the age of 6 months, when the fetal hemoglobin, which is the most populous hemoglobin form in the red blood cells at birth, begins to run off for the adult hemoglobin to start taking over.
Okay.
From that point you begin to see, because for the fetal hemoglobin you may not notice any symptoms. So from 6 months upwards, manifestations of this disease can begin to rise. But the truth is that you can find out now even while the mother is pregnant. There are genetic testings.
Oh.
Yes, there are genetic testings to be done in utero. So some people have gone ahead to say, well, you find out at that stage you can even terminate the pregnancy. Well, we don't teach that. Okay, but you can find out at any stage now. But one thing that happens that make people not to know usually, because they don't have any problems ordinarily, or they don't have any severe problems, so they don't get to check their phenotype and find out.
Okay.
What happens is that there are modifying factors to the disease. There are people you see, when they tell you that this person is SS, you'll be shouting, wow, it doesn't look it, looks very strong, looks very healthy. Okay, when there are modifying factors, you may not have a severe disease, so you may not have cause to go and do any form of testing to find out your phenotype. So the truth is that one of such common modifications is the fetal hemoglobin. There's what we call the high persistence of the fetal hemoglobin. So when the fetal hemoglobin is high enough, ordinarily it should wane from 6 months, but if it persists, okay, in certain people, it may modify the disease. Because one of the major challenges in the disease condition is the ability for the red blood cells to carry oxygen. But because the fetal hemoglobin is able to transport that oxygen sufficiently, you may not have any problems. So they may not.
Okay, so we've been talking to Dr. Chikezie, but then we've got Dr. Johnson and we have Mr. Chika Odiegbe in the studio. Mr. Chika, you are representing Vika Hope Foundation, and you're also the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor's Wife. Vika Hope Foundation is a huge part of this movement, this initiative that's going on today in the premises of Flow 94.9 FM. So, why and what are you doing, Vika Hope, besides this, to support the campaign?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I would say the foundation took major interest in sickle cell care, management and counseling in 2015 when the First Lady fortunately emerged as a First Lady when her husband became governor. She expressed it as a pet project that she intended to carry out during her husband's stay in office. And I think it was propelled by the fact that she had come from a family full of doctors and nurses, and then probably she had seen people who have suffered from this ailment over the years. What Vika Hope is doing in the area of sickle cell disease prevention and management is a two-pronged approach. We are doing sensitization, we are doing awareness creation. Then we're on the other side, we're also doing management, case management, and then counseling. In the area of sensitization and awareness creation, and of course advocacy that goes with it, we have, as a foundation, actually gone to so many schools, so many churches, so many marketplaces, so many in fact any platform that is veritable has been used by the foundation to propagate this message that you actually need to know your genotype, you need to compare with that of your partner before you begin to procreate, so that you don't have children with sickle cell disorder. The advocacy of the foundation also propelled or instigated the Abia State House of Assembly to pass a law called the Abia State Blood Group and Genotype Identification Law number 5 of 2018. This law prescribes punishments, penalties, fines, even closures for institutions, laboratories, marriage registries, churches who actually coordinate or preside over a marriage ceremony if the two partners who are going to be joined have not been tested.
Okay.
Now, this is not to say that the intention is to get them not to marry, but the intention is to get them to understand that they need to have information at the fingertips that can enable them make decision to say, okay, look, I've gone for the tests and I am AS. Then my husband to be has also gone for the test and is AS. So let's take a decision. Is either we jump the river or we step back and think about what we want to do. But ultimately, I don't think sickle cell disease is something any family would want to have in its how do I explain it, in its home, because it comes with a lot of, pardon me for using this word, harrowing experiences. It comes with a lot of painful experiences. It also affects the income or the solvency of that family, because you find out that if you have a child who has sickle cell disease, you're always in the hospital, in and out. Okay. So that's a huge problem. Now, the advocacy of the foundation has also propelled Abia State government to begin to teach sickle cell disorder in schools.
Okay. You said something about a law of catching couples who do not get tested.
Yes.
Yeah. How's that coming about?
Okay. It's the law. It's there. It was signed by the governor. What it prescribes again is that there is an enforcement authority. As a matter of fact, that enforcement authority, the task force, was inaugurated yesterday by the state government.
Okay. So it's new.
Yeah, it's new. What they would be doing is probably begin to do Operation Show Your ID Card. So we see if you have inscribed your blood group or your genotype on your ID card, which the law prescribes.
Okay.
Everyone must do a test and inscribe your genotype and your blood group on your identity card. So they probably are going to do operation show your ID card. They're probably going to go to schools, churches, and then begin to ensure that people are obeying this regulation that's been put in place.
Okay, so this is new, so Abians should expect some task force asking us to show our ID card.
That is true.
Okay, if you haven't gotten tested, if you do not know your genotype, you better hurry down to 7B Factory Road and get tested so that you can put that on your ID card. Thank you so much, Mr. Chika. Dr. Johnson, Abia Telehealth, what role are they playing right now, presently, as regards sickle cell?
Thank you very much for that question. We at Abia Telehealth, we're more like the virtual doctor. You don't get to see the doctors face to face, where you can dial in, and we'll attend to you. What we do there is that we provide counsel to individuals that are affected by these, either prospective couples or maybe mothers or fathers, parents that have come in contact with this, and unfortunately they have a child with a sickle cell disease. So they can call in whenever they have any medical challenge, whenever they need clarification, whenever they need what they need to, if they need to ask things that they need to do. They can call in and we'll provide them with proper medical guidance. Like Dr. Chikeze said, he's my chief. He told us that there are some circumstances, there are some things, there are some situations that will happen that will increase the risk of a child having this sickle cell crisis. Like, for example, dehydration, if the child is not taking water adequately. Also things like acidosis, things like extremes of temperature, either fever or hypothermia. There are also things to high altitude, hypoxemia, to low oxygen concentration in the blood. All these things can increase the risk of sickling and increase the risk of the child being hospitalized in an emergency department. So when these parents, when they call in, we can provide them with proper medical education so that they can at least reduce the incidence of the child getting to the hospital having this crisis, so the quality of life the child can have will be improved. Okay,
all right. We are talking sickle cell disease right here in the studios of Flow 94.9 FM, and Dr. Kelechi Chikezie, who is the senior registrar, hematology department, FMC Umahia, has been doing a great job explaining to us how one can find out that they have the SS trait. Also, we've got Dr. Chukwemeka Johnson. He works with the Abia Telehealth, and there is a number to call in case you have questions to ask Abia Telehealth and you want to seek help from them. Yes, there's a number to call, 0700 2242 362. Yeah, so you can call that number to ask your questions. That's the Abia Telehealth people. Also, we've got Mr. Chika Ojiegbe, who is the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor's Wife and also a representative of Vika Hope Foundation. Now, Vika Hope Foundation provided us with test kits. This whole free testing wouldn't have been possible without them providing us with the test kits. And we also appreciate Ify Joe's Foundation, because this is in collaboration with Ify Joe's Foundation. Also, Chili's Cafe, Glow, Royal Rentals, Manji's Table Water, Charles Ben Distribution Company, God's Grace Diagnostic Center, Abibaba Ibeko, and also Denko Cosmetics. Yes. Okay, Dr. Chikezie, you know how a lot of people know that they have the traits, they are AS, but then they still head on to the altar and they make babies, and then they start to have all of this suffering. What should sickle cell patients avoid?
Okay, so we're talking about the patients now.
Yes, those that have what their caregivers should know and what the patients should know.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It's important to prevent crisis as much as possible, and that is the essence of medical care. Sometimes we encourage them, get a hematologist. It's important in managing that these people are specialized in that area, and so they're able to give them all the necessary care they should get. For us in hematology, we don't want to see them in crisis. We would rather see them healthy.
Okay, so hematology department takes care of
sickle cell patients.
Okay,
yes. So you see, we don't want to see them sick, because each time they fall sick, there could be bad outcomes if care is not taken. So we would rather not have them be sick. So health education is very important, and I'm glad my colleague in the telehealth section is saying that they've been doing that. That's good. That's encouraging. Sickle cell patients, what should they do to reduce the chances of having crisis? One, we emphasize water intake. A lot of emphasis is placed on that, and a minimum of 3 liters of water daily. Sometimes you see patients who tell you, I do up to that and I still have these problems often. Okay, so what we say is it is a minimum. You don't stop at 3 liters. Okay, if you can do more than that, before we start talking about water intoxication, you would have taken a lot. So doing more than 3 liters is not harmful yet. So they should take a lot of water. That way they prevent the red cells from crystallizing and having all those issues that will cause deformity of the shape of the red cells. Okay, well, they should also avoid extremes of temperature. Sometimes when these patients have pain, some of the things we hear them do, or what they say that they have done at home, sometimes they use heat compression. Okay, they boil water, use hot water flask or hot water bottle, to press on those areas where they have pain. Those things are not really right. They are not right. But these are practices they believe could help soothe the pain, but it's not helpful. So they should avoid the 2 extremes of temperature. Not even ice block either.
Okay. So they should just be in the middle.
Oh yeah, they should avoid extremes of temperature.
Okay.
They should also high altitudes. You would not completely discourage high altitudes. They have to fly, for any reason, but staying too long on those high altitudes is also discouraged, because the longer they stay up there, the lower the oxygen tension. Then avoid infections as much as possible. So good hygiene techniques are important, because their immune system, like we said earlier, is affected by the disease condition itself. So each time they have fever, they are further dehydrated. And this will predispose to sickling and then crisis. So as much as possible, avoid fever. We encourage malaria prophylaxis, not malaria treatment routinely. That's what we say a lot of people do. You just take anti-malaria whether you're sick or not. But prophylaxis,
prevention. Please explain that.
Prevention of malaria. There are medications that are for prevention, not necessarily treatment. So we encourage just to avoid fever as much as possible. We are in a very endemic area for malaria, so one may not 100% run away from malaria, but as much as is possible to reduce the chances of having fever that could lead to dehydration and then sickling. So that's that. Also, we encourage regular medical checkup by a hematologist. It's important. There are certain drugs they take at home. They do a lot of self-medication, probably because, like it's been mentioned, these people are tired of coming to the hospitals, because it's like it's a routine thing, it's a frequent thing for them. So sometimes they don't want to come to the hospitals anymore. They want to try to see if they can manage the pain at home.
So what about the first aid, like something you do first?
Good. That's what I was coming to. So sometimes when they have pain, because that's usually the most troublesome part of this disease, when they have pain, we encourage certain kinds of analgesics. There are analgesics we don't encourage. There are analgesics that may be effective but are deleterious at the end of the day, because sickle cell disease affects the kidney as a disease entity. And then there are certain painkillers that also affect the kidney. So you are throwing 2 insults at the kidney at the same time. So a good number of the sickle cell patients come down with kidney failure later in life. So we try to avoid their use of such drugs. And then we also encourage, I wouldn't want to start mentioning drugs here on air, but there are medications we encourage, there are those we discourage. Sometimes they go straight for the injections at home. Particularly pentazocine, I'm going to mention that one now because it's becoming a challenge in the environment. It's a potent painkiller, it's an opioid, but at the end of the day, a good number of them become dependent. So we move from the issue of sickle cell and its challenges and come to the issue of dependence, addiction to a drug, because it has that high potency for addiction. So we discourage the use of such drugs. So we would rather say use oral painkillers. Avoid the ones they call the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, ibuprofen, cataflam, diclofenac. Okay, these are ephedrine. These have worked for them, very effective, but then they have deleterious effects. So we discourage the use of those drugs. We advise them on oral opioids. Okay, and then Panadol, as simple as Panadol sounds. Okay, if this does not work for you 1 day, 2 days, we advise you come to the hospital rather than go on to try other things on yourself. They may cause more harm than good.
Okay.
At the end of the day.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. What are the foods that sickle cell anemia patients can avoid? You know, basically what they eat. You know, what their intake, because it's not all about what is outside, but then what you also ingest.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Sickle cell anemia patients, they tend to eat, they should, like Dr. Chikeze said, they should eat healthy.
Okay.
They need to eat very, very healthy food, fruits and vegetables. This will help to improve the immune system, try to fight away the infections that will rise so that febrile diseases will not occur. So there are still some types of food that one can eat too that can help, because of the hemolysis that is going on in the body. We tend to see that these individuals, they have iron, they can have iron overload because of the excessive hemolysis. So there are some types of food that we eat that will help to remove the iron in the body and keep the body in check so that they don't have iron overload. Okay, so basically they should just try and eat healthy food, fruits, vegetables, then other healthy foods too. They should not try to take all these maybe excessive sugary stuffs and other things too. All those healthy food can keep them in check.
Okay, healthy food, binge on fruits, binge on vegetables, and you've heard it from the good doctors. You'll be fine. Right? I need my doctors to say right now.
Oh yes, how are you feeling? But it's also important to discourage use of herbs.
Okay, herbs.
Yes, they should not use herbs.
Abu.
It's not healthy at all. These things take their toll on the kidney at the end of the day. And like we said, the kidney is, for us, is a precious organ. Consider that the disease is enough stress to the kidney. You don't want to add more stress.
But speaking of herbs, some people have said, not like it's been proven, that there are some herbs that they've taken and it has worked for them.
People will always say that, and I have not said herbs don't work.
Okay.
I have said that they work, but they have side effects. So at the end of the day, you weigh the credits and the merits and the demerits, and then make your choice.
Okay. All right. Well, before we take a breather, Chika, is there any program that Vika Hope Foundation is putting in place to support the patients with sickle cell disease, and what is it?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Lots of them. As a matter of fact, I would say the foundation is the biggest single investor in sickle cell eradication in the state.
Okay.
As I speak to you, the foundation has 2 medical centers that is dedicated to the care of people with sickle cell disease. One is located in Abia. That should be 75 Cameroon Road, Abia. The other one is in Umuahia, 183 in the Tuka bypass in Umuahia. Apart from that, we have a robust counseling program that is run by the foundation. As you know, like I pointed out before, the president of the foundation is the wife of the governor, Dr. Nkechi Bazu. There's what I would like to call good news, or some silver lining in the cloud. With the strategies put in place by the collaboration between the state government and Vika Hope Foundation, I'm seeing that in the near future, this disease, if it doesn't go into complete extinction, it will be reduced, the prevalence will be reduced so much. Because when you take the combination of three strategic steps that have been taken, one, the law, which in one way or the other tries to get people to understand that they need to know what they're doing before they do what they're doing. Then the other strategy is to begin to teach, like I said before you cut me off, the sickle cell disease has been integrated, the study of the disease has been integrated into the school curriculum. Now, the objective of this is to see that the message is carried into every home, because as far as you have kids going to school, they're going to learn about the disease, they're going to learn about how to prevent it, and they probably also learn about how to manage it. And they bring back this information home to speak to their parents, their neighbors, and their friends. So that one huge step is going to increase awareness exponentially, and I think it's going to lead to a significant reduction in the number of new cases.
Okay.
Now, like I pointed out before, we also do management. On the government side, what government has done is to set up 17 sickle cell focal offices in the 17 local government areas of the state, where they've been able to use that platform to take medical care closer to the people in the grassroots. When you have 17 focal offices that are distributing drugs to sickle cell warriors, that are giving them counseling, that are trying to encourage them to cope with the challenges of that ailment, you can see that it's a robust strategy that the government is applying. Okay. And of course, Vika Hope is strongly supporting it.
All right. Now, coming to support in terms of parents who have children suffering from sickle cell disease, the economy is not helping, and you rightly said it affects the pocket a great deal.
Yes, it does.
Is there any form of support that Vika Hope Foundation is giving to parents?
Okay. What we are doing is to ensure that survivors have access to medical care.
Okay.
We've put in place all those structures, and at those structures we are ensuring that we subsidize the cost of everything that comes into that place. Drugs are subsidized. If you have reasons to be admitted, it's greatly subsidized. Treatment, that is doctor's consultation, is actually free. You understand?
Yeah.
Tests, diagnosis is subsidized seriously. We have this equipment, like Dr. Johnson said earlier on. It's difficult sometimes to isolate. What did you call it? I mean, I'm not a medical person. When you isolate genotypes, beta phenotypes, good. Beta thalassemia and all that. So we have this equipment called the HPLC. As a matter of fact, I think the foundation is the only institution in the state that has a functional HPLC machine, okay, where we are able to identify all these disorders, and it's quite an expensive test, but we've greatly subsidized it, almost about half of the original cost if you go to any other institution. So these are some of the ways we've been able to support families. Now, the president of the foundation on her own, because of her status as the first lady, often intervenes in circumstances that surrounds families who are carrying the burden of sickle cell disease. There's a lot of cases. I can't begin to itemize them one after the other right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's been amazing having you on the program, Mr. Chika Ojiegbe. We're letting you go right now. Mr. Chika Ojiegbe is the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor's Wife, and he is representing Vika Hope Foundation. We're talking sickle cell anemia. We are talking sickle cell anemia. Today is the 19th day in the month of June. And yes, we will be back after this time out. Don't go anywhere. Well, glad to know you're still on to Flow 94.9 FM. And yes, we are discussing sickle cell disease today. Today is an awareness day where we get to create awareness about the sickle cell disease. And yes, we have to take our sponsors, those that have come together to help this program, the free blood testing program, become a success today. We thank the Office of Her Excellency, Deaconess Nkechi Pazu, and we thank Vika Hope Foundation, which is a pet project of the Governor's Wife. They provided us with test kits for today's free testing. And I must say that the free testing is still ongoing right now at 7B Factory Road, Isiama Faruku, which is the premises of Flow 94.9 FM. So avail yourself the opportunity to know your genotype. When I said boyfriends and girlfriends, come and find out, somebody was laughing at me. Well, If you are in a relationship with somebody and you know it's leading somewhere, you've heard it from the experts in the studio. Why not come down here to know your genotype? It will not cost you anything because it is totally free. We also thank Ify Joe's Foundation. They've been amazing. They are collaborating with Flow 94.9 FM and they brought this event together. Chili's Cafe, Glow, Globacom Nigeria, Royal Rentals, Maggi Stable Water, Charles Ben Distribution Company, Abia Telehealth, and Abia Telehealth has a number. You know, they say telehealth, that means you don't need to come down to the hospital. You just call them on 0700 2242 362. 0700 2242 362. Also, we thank God's Grace Diagnostic Center, Abriba by Ibeko, and we also thank Denko Cosmetics for helping to put this together. Yes, I've got Dr. Kelechi Chikezie, who is the Senior Registrar, Hematology Department, FMC Umahia. We also have Dr. Chukwemeka Johnson. He works with Abia Telehealth, and he is here. He's going to tell us more as regards what the telehealth is doing concerning sickle cell. And also, we thank Mr. Chika Ojiegbe, who just left us right now, the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor's wife, and he represents Vika Hope Foundation. Joining us right now is Josephine Ifoma Osondu. She is the founder, Ify Joe's Foundation. Hi, Ify. Good afternoon. Well, Ify, I must start with you first. You are like, you are the brain behind this whole movement, this whole thing that is going on today. Yes, Ify, why so much love? Why so much importance on today?
The reason why I had so much interest in this and I tried to put all this together is because I'm a victim. I'm a victim of sickle cell anemia. I was born with one. So I went through rigorous challenges as I was growing up. And as I grew up, I didn't want to see other children suffering from this. Even my enemy, I wouldn't even want my enemy to have a child suffering from sickle cell anemia. Because as a little girl, it wasn't easy at all as I was growing. But I won't tell you that as an adult, I don't still have the challenges. But then I've known how to manage myself and I've overcome a lot of things as an adult. So I decided to work on. That's why I started this foundation, to work to make sure that the death of sickle cell anemia is reduced, and also to help those who are suffering from sickle cell anemia, because there are so many people, so many warriors out there who are suffering from this disease, who have been neglected by their parents. Because one thing about this is, when you tell people don't marry as AS and all that, and they end up getting married, they have kids with sickle cell and they have healthy kids, they tend to neglect the warriors, because after spending a lot of money taking care of you, they get tired and they neglect you, and they neglect the children. Most of them go out the street, hustle to help themselves. Most of them go through a lot of challenges. Their parents don't care, because sometimes they don't even care if some of them pass away because they have other children. So that is the reason why I decided to put my interest into this, to fight this, to make sure we don't have children with sickle cell anemia. I don't want to see someone go through what I went through. I went through a lot as I was growing up, like I said earlier. So I don't want other people to go through. That's why I started this.
All right, Ify, you are a warrior.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Chikezie, Ify, you can see Ify. I wish you at home can actually see Ify right now. Ify is a mature young lady. When I say a mature young lady, she is a mature young lady. Now, why I am saying this is because there's this myth that, I don't know if it's a myth or if it's true. Well, Dr. Chikezie will clarify that for me right now. But then, there's this saying that people have that if you have the sickle cell trait, if you're SS, and you don't die maybe at the age of 10 or 15, you probably die at the age of 21. If you don't die at 21, you die at 45. If you don't die at 45, you will not die again. Okay, Doc, please clear this one for me right now.
All right, thank you very much. Sickle cell is a genetic disease. So don't outgrow it. Okay. Nobody outgrows sickle cell. But like if he has said, you get used to knowing how to manage yourself so that you can avoid certain complications. Now, how long does a sickle cell patient live? Okay, sickle cell patients don't have time to die. There's no age given to them to live and die. We currently have one who is 80 now in Nigeria. Yes, we have one. Okay, so they can live as long as God has predestined they live. Okay, where the challenge is the amount of care, the adequacy of care given to any patient. I tell my patients in the hospital, every time you come to the hospital, you may not go home. Okay? The reason why I have to say that to them is for them to understand why they need to take good care of themselves with adequate care. Yes, it is very expensive to manage patients with sickle cell, but with adequate care, with all the support they need, they do well. So I'm not going to tell you they die at 21, they die at whatever. They don't have any particular time when they die, and they can live to full old age. They can. We have those. One of my professors in school is a sickle cell survivor. He's a sickle cell patient. He's a professor of hematology now as we speak. Okay, so they live as long as. Okay, so it's just for people to take good care of themselves. But like if you mentioned, one challenge with managing these people is parents feel that they have other good children, other healthy children. So I won't kill myself. I've seen a lot of them practically abandoned. And by the time they start suffering complications of this disease, because the one we're talking about complications, I failed to mention the chronic leg ulcer. That's another major challenge they have. And they have this big wound that stays years and it does not heal. Okay, it's a big challenge, sometimes requiring plastic surgery and all of that. So it can be expensive, it can be difficult to manage. Okay, but when people are given adequate care, they live and they do well. We've seen a good number of them who are doing well.
And that brings me to the question: someone with the SS trait, do they lead a productive life?
That's a sickle cell patient?
Yes, a sickle cell patient.
When you say productive life,
like
children?
Yes. Like for the females, can they carry pregnancies safely?
Thank you very much for that question. We've seen a lot of them, a good number of them. The males, the females have had them have their own children. That's not a challenge at all. Wonderful. Yes, there may be some issues with delaying attaining puberty. Once they eventually attain puberty, it's not a challenge. Sometimes some of them too may have gonadal dysfunctions, okay, and they affect their fertility. But by and large, a good number of them don't have such issues. So they get married, they have their children. It's not a challenge.
It's not a challenge. Okay. All right, that's amazing. It's Sickle Cell Awareness Day today. We are creating that awareness so that you can know your genotype and do the right thing. Of course, I've got Dr. Kelechi Chikezie here, doing justice to what we are discussing today. Also, Dr. Chukwuemeka Johnson, who is with Abia Telehealth, also here doing justice, and Ifeoma Osondo. Ife, I would like for you to share some of your experiences growing up as a carrier of the trait and how it was for you.
Okay, let me start with when I was born. My parents were not aware I was a sickler. Okay. I was SS. We were two in my family. I have an elder sister and I. So my elder sister was always having crisis at her tender age when she was little, and she was being treated like she had Obanje. She had these marks all over her body, taking half to one prayer, this spiritual prayer house and all that, native doctor, thinking she has Obanje with all the whole mark on her body. So even me that time, there was a time we had to go out. I went out with her, and when we came back, we watched a movie, and she was so scared of the movie. In the night, she started being sick, and we started praying. They have come, they have come, they have come. Why? Nobody knew that she was suffering from sickle cell anemia. So I grew up healthy until when I was like 7. When I was like 7, I was registered in a school. And when I was registered in the school, they asked for genotype test. And that was where they got my genotype. I'm like, I'm SS. Then my family don't know what SS is. So we decided to do every other person. And I found out my sister has been suffering from that. Then at the age of 12, I had my first challenge, which was a sickle cell stroke. I had stroke, a partial stroke. I couldn't walk with one of my legs. I've always had this grace of recovering from such challenges very fast. Unlike so many other persons. Like this stroke you're saying, I'm talking about, I've seen so many persons that are suffering for that stroke for years. But I went through mine for like 6 months. I was able to pick up and go back to school because I was in secondary school then, go back to school. So within 6 months, though my parents did a lot, taking me to hospital and everything to make sure I get back to my feet. So I had stroke, and I also had this called leg ulcer. That was the worst challenge I had. As in, it wasn't healing, no matter what. And at that time, so many doctors were so afraid of giving me this medication they call antibiotics.
Okay.
And the reason why they were really afraid of doing that was because they feel I have a low blood, and giving you a lot of antibiotics would drain your blood or something like that. So they were trying to manage, even with the antibiotics they were giving. They weren't giving me much of it then. But the ulcer was growing and growing to the extent at the time you could see my bones.
Oh no.
So, but God being so kind, the ulcer, I didn't have to do a plastic surgery anyway, and the ulcer got healed and went back to normal. I also had osteomyelitis. That was the last challenge I ever had. I was having so my shortage of blood is not something that is regular. Maybe because I eat healthy and I take my routine drugs, so I don't have much problem with the shortage of blood, because there are people, warriors, that transfuse blood every month, some weekly, yes, and there are some too that change blood timely because of frequent crises. Now when I talk about when I'm having I have crisis. You know, when you hear about this crisis, sometimes people just hear crisis and you just feel like this crisis is a severe pain that you're from down of your toes to your fingers, from down to your fingers. In fact, your head would be on pains, and the pains, when it starts, you feel so uncomfortable. You can't even rest. You don't even know where to keep your body. You don't know where to relax. You just be crying and be rolling and rolling and rolling. So that was the kind of challenges we were having when we were going. And then they give you injection. But I was this type of person that was scared of injection when I was little. I preferred taking drugs. And then I got so much used to taking paracetamol. So as I grew up, I get used to paracetamol. Anytime I have crisis, I take paracetamol. Though it might not stop that day, it could take some days for it to stop. So I take it. Paracetamol, if you finish taking, you go again, you take paracetamol. But there are people that take injections. Now, a lot of they accuse warriors of being addicted of injection, but most times I don't blame them. These pains are so painful and it's so regular. There are people that have crisis daily. There are people that have crisis 2 to 3 times a week. And these pains, when it comes, when this crisis stops, you feel so exhausted. You know, sometimes when I have crisis and by the time I get back to myself, I will have this, my body like spit gushing from my mouth. I can't control it because I'm weak. I'm exhausted from the pains and the struggle from that pain. So these injections, these people give themselves injections to stop those pains. And some, when they see that the pains is working for them, they take it regularly so that they don't even get crisis at all. So most times they get addicted to it and take it often and often. But I was so blessed I was never addicted to anything. I'm the kind of person that never wanted to be addicted to anything. And the good part of the fact that I had, my osteomyelitis started from infection. There was a time I I had lymph nodes coming out all over my body. You can see my neck. There are marks on my neck here. So I went to the hospital for testing. I think that was FMC, and they were like, they will take some samples from it for tests, and you find out that if you open it and remove a sample, 4 more will come out in that same place. And before you know it, one came in the armpit, and the one in the armpit was so painful. It went to the extent I started having night fever. Fevers in the night, every night fever. Before you know it, as in it becomes so bad that when it was opened at the end of the day, it was so deep that I was even scared of losing my arms. But the good thing is, at the end of the day, it was treated and I was back to faith. And I want to say this is an encouraging word to warriors out there. I was the kind of person that was going through a lot as a warrior, but I could tell you that I've stayed like more than 7 years without crisis, frequent crisis. In fact, before I have crisis now, like this year I've never had one. So I'm not the type that is living consistently on my drugs now, you understand? But I eat healthy and I drink water consistently. If you come to my office, you see my bottle water 247. It doesn't leave my table.
You don't joke with your water.
I don't joke with my water. And
you are a warrior.
Thank you very much.
You are a warrior. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I know it took a whole lot. All right, we're doing the sickle cell awareness program right now, and yes, before we go, we're about to wrap up, but before we go, Dr. Johnson, is there a cure for sickle cell? Dr. Chikezie, we hear bone marrow transplants, some have recorded successes, we'll talk about it, but then Dr. Johnson, is there a cure for sickle cell?
Okay, thank you very much. Like you said, bone marrow transplantation, poetic stem cell transplantation, this can provide cure to sickle cell, but when doing this bone marrow or stem cell transplantation, you need to weigh both the benefit and the risk involved. Okay. And those people that qualify for stem cell transplantation, they are those that have severe crisis. Okay, because before you do this stem cell transplantation, you're going to put the patient at risk of severe immunosuppression. We're going to suppress the patient's immune system, and this can lead to severe infection. And also other complications that may arise could be graft versus host disease. So this could potentially lead to the patient's death. Okay, so yes, this cures sickle cell, but we need to first of all weigh the benefit and the risk before performing something like this.
Okay, all right, Dr. Chikezie.
Okay, so sorry. Yes, it has a cure. And the stem cell transplant or the bone marrow transplant, like you said, is a cure for sickle cell. There's another cure called the gene therapy. Okay, so some form of genetic engineering can be done, okay, to repair, so to speak, the genetic abnormality. So gene therapy, stem cell transplant, these are the options for cure for sickle cell, and the outcome is good. The outcome is good. The problem with stem cell transplant, he has mentioned a few, Dr. Johnson, my colleague, but you see, the challenges of stem cell transplant in treating cancers is different from the outcome in treating sickle cell disease. We don't have so much of a problem compared to in the treatment of cancers, because bone marrow transplant can be a treatment for certain cancers, and there you may have a lot of challenges with recovery, with the procedure itself and all of that. Okay. So in sickle cell disease, we don't have much of a problem, even though you still stratify patients. There are some that may not need it. Okay. And again, the cost is the challenge. Oh. How many people can afford it? So the best treatment is still prevention of severe complications. But we know that there are factors that modify this disease. There are factors you cannot help that are not of your own making. That make the disease severe, while some other people have a mild disease. Okay, so for those who have severe disease, there are many options, but then cure, these are the options.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Kelechi Chikezie, a senior registrar of hematology department, FMC Umuahia. Thank you so much, Dr. Chukwemeka Johnson. You work for Abia Telehealth. Thank you so much, Ifeoma Josephine Osondu. She is the founder, Ife Joe's Foundation. But before we go, 1 second each. Is it 1 second? No, 30 seconds each for your advice.
Okay, so thank you very much, Joma. My advice to the sufferers, my advice to the family of such sufferers, my advice is to the government and to the society. They need a lot of support. They need a lot of care. The cost of managing a sickle cell patient is overwhelming, and it's not something that can be left for one person. So as much as possible, they need emotional support, they need financial support. All the support they can get should be given to them. I'm talking about the patients now. The family should provide support, the society should provide support, government should provide support. Okay, we appreciate the things that have been said already that the government is doing. We appreciate those things and expect that more should be done to help these people as much as possible, and then to encourage the patients to take the advice of their doctors, do everything we ask them to do. Those routine drugs, they are very important, they are very helpful. Those small advice, drink water, it sounds ordinary, but it's life protecting, you know. So they should do all that they've been asked to do, and please, we still keep encouraging them. Have your checkups, have your routine checkups with your doctor. You don't have to be sick to see your doctor. In fact, the doctor does not want to see you sick. It's better you're not sick.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Oh, I thank you, Ify, for sharing your experience with us. It's very challenging, sickle cell disease. So, like we said, prevention is always better than cure. Those that are suffering from it, they can listen to the advice from their doctors, and they'll live a healthy life. For other prospective couples too, they need to check their genotype first of all before engaging in marriages, so that they don't bring out children that will suffer this. Also, and also, I would like to put out a number, Abia Telehealth phone number here too, so that those people outside too, they can still dial the doc and get some information and counsel from us. Okay, so the number is 0700-224-2362, 0700-224-2362. So anyone with a medical issue can dial us, and we'll give them the right information that they need.
Okay.
Please excuse me. Concerning prospective couples, we have always seen people go for what they call genotype testing. And then you see people, they told me I'm AA, they told me I'm AA. Where is this SS child coming from? They told me I am AA. The truth is that there are limitations to what they call genotype testing. The hemoglobin electrophoresis that is routinely done has challenges. We advise prospective couples to go for the high performance liquid chromatography, HPLC.
Doc, we will invite you so that you can talk more on this next time. Ify, what's your advice?
Okay, my advice here is for warriors out there. I want to encourage you to stand strong and believe in yourself. One thing is that most times we're being discouraged, but don't be discouraged. Believe in yourself. There's nothing you can do. And whoever tells you that you will die, because I know most times when I was growing up, the whole fear is you're going to die. No. You have a very, very healthy life to live. Just believe in yourself and do everything you want to do. Academic, pursue it. Your dreams, pursue it. Don't let it weigh you down, and don't let it keep you from being who you want to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we say a very big thank you to our partners and sponsors, the Office of Her Excellency Deaconess Nkechi Ikpeazu, Vicar Hope Foundation, Ify Joe's Foundation, Abia Telehealth, Chili's Cafe, Globacom Nigeria Limited, Royal Rentals, Magi's Table Water, Charles Ben Distribution Company, God's Grace Diagnostic Center, Abriba by Ibeku, and Denko Cosmetics. Thank you so much. I am Chioma Nkwanta Ezengwa. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.